It ended not with a bang, but a whisper, just as the pattern was tightening, just as the dragon stood on the brink of madness and prophecy. Amazon's Wheel of Time journey was cut short. Season 4 has officially been canceled. And for fans who carried this story through decades of books, adaptations, and emotion, this is more than a disappointment, it's a rupture. But don't despair just yet, because in the world of the wheel, endings aren't the end. They're just pauses in the pattern. And even now, hope is not lost. The decision that broke the pattern. Amazon's choice to cancel the Wheel of Time after 3 seasons didn't stem from creative failure. In fact, the show ended on one of its strongest notes. Season 3 reached a stunning 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics praised its emotional depth and improved pacing, and the cast had finally grown into their characters. But behind the scenes, numbers told a colder story. The show's massive production costs, spanning global locations, VFX-heavy battles, and a sprawling international cast, began to outweigh its viewership. While Season 1 broke records and lit up Prime streaming charts, each following season saw a quieter response. By Season 3, the show had disappeared from Nielsen's top 10 within weeks. Despite international highs and a loyal fan base, the scale tilted. Amazon, with its other flagship fantasy investment, The Rings of Power, couldn't justify the expense of another season. It wasn't a creative decision, it was a financial one. And that's what makes it hurt even more. What Season 4 would have brought us. This wasn't just any next chapter. Season 4 was poised to adapt The Fires of Heaven and Lord of Chaos, 2 of the most iconic books in the series. The arcs we were about to witness were mythic, devastating, and essential to the saga's heart. Rand had stepped fully into his role as Karakarn, having endured Ruidian's vision trials and claimed his place among the Aiel. The finale's haunting image, Rand clinging to the One Power while Egwene screams for him to let go, was meant to usher in his greatest internal war, resisting madness while holding the world's fate in his hands. Moiraine, mortally wounded and healed by the Sangreal Sakarnan, had just glimpsed a future only she understood. She was no longer Rand's guide, she was his shield against what was to come, prepared to die for a future no one else could see. Mat, newly escaped from the Tower of Genjade, now carried the Foxhead Medallion, a symbol of survival, freedom, and a growing destiny. Season 4 would have seen him march reluctantly toward leadership, his role in the Zhan Shan conflict, and that legendary duel all readers await. And Nynaeve, who had finally shattered her block and emerged as one of the most powerful channelers in the age, was ready to rise. She was to train the Domain, face the Forsaken, and potentially reshape the Tower's very future. All of this, now, silenced. What we've lost isn't just episodes, it's legacy. When a fantasy series gets canceled, it's easy for casual audiences to shrug. But The Wheel of Time isn't just another show. It's a 14-book epic that shaped generations of fantasy readers. It taught us that prophecy isn't fixed, that the past lives in our bones, and that the smallest choices ripple through the weave of destiny. And for the fans who followed these characters since the 9990s, who waited decades for this adaptation, who saw their favorite chapters come to life for the first time, we've lost Egwene's rise to Amerlin's seat. We've lost Mat's confrontation with the Shan-Chan and his impossible marriage to Tuon. We've lost Rand's mounting madness, his battle with Lews Theron's voice, and his evolution into a man who must destroy himself to save the world. We've lost Lan's quiet journey toward death and love, Nynaeve's cleansing of Saidin, the battle of Dumai's Wells, the quiet horror of Shaidar Hara, the rebirth of Moiraine. We've lost more than plot. We've lost the chance to see this story finish what it started, for once, on screen. But even more devastating, we've lost the communal momentum. The rising tide of fans discovering the series together. Parents showing it to their children. Book-first viewers finally getting their long-awaited scenes. That shared breath between readers and non-readers. All suspended now, mid-turn. What the fandom can do next. This is not the first time The Wheel of Time has faced silence. After Robert Jordan's death, the series could have ended at Book 11. But it didn't. Brandon Sanderson, guided by Jordan's notes and the love of the fandom, finished the story. And that spirit, that belief that stories must continue, still burns in the community today. There is no perfect path forward, but there are paths. Already the hashtag #SaveWheel of Time is spreading. Fans are organizing digital campaigns, sending letters to Amazon and calling for Netflix, HBO, or other platforms to consider a pickup. This show has built international traction. It trends globally when it airs. And its fan base, though quieter than some, is fierce in its love. If any fantasy fandom can pull off a resurrection, it's this one. Creators have also spoken. Showrunner Rafe Judkins has already stated that outlines for future seasons exist. The cast is heartbroken, but vocal. If Amazon reconsiders based on critical buzz and renewed fan engagement, there's still a chance for a film, a miniseries, or even a Season 4 resurrection in another form. But it starts here, with fans who refuse to let the pattern unravel. The harsh reality of streaming economics. In the age of streaming, art and algorithm dance a fragile waltz. And sometimes, even when a show performs well critically like The Wheel of Time did in its third season, if it doesn't meet internal metrics, it dies. Amazon's decision to cancel the series wasn't about fan backlash or poor quality. In fact, Season 3 was hailed as a creative triumph. It reached a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes, delivered emotionally layered arcs, and drew praise for elevating the stakes and themes. But prestige doesn't always pay the bills. With global filming locations, elaborate costumes, and CGI-intensive scenes, Wheel of Time was among Amazon's most expensive projects. And by Season 3, despite solid fan loyalty, viewership had declined just enough to raise concerns. It wasn't trending long enough. It wasn't climbing fast enough. In a world where streaming platforms chase instant virality, slow-burn fantasy lost its seat at the table. Amazon likely looked at Rings of Power, saw the overlap, and made a calculation, one high-budget fantasy at a time. It's a short-sighted view, but a common one, and Wheel of Time, like many great series before it, paid the price. Season 4 would have changed everything. This wasn't just another season. It was the season. The one where the fires of heaven and Lord of Chaos would finally come to life. For book readers, this was sacred ground. For show watchers, it was going to be the moment everything snapped into place. And now, it will never be filmed. We were about to see Rand descend deeper into his role as the Dragon Reborn, stepping into prophecy with fire and guilt in equal measure. We were going to see Dumai's Wells, the battle that defines his turning point and shatters the White Tower's illusion of control. We were going to see Egwene rise, Mat become more than a trickster, and Nynaeve walk fully into her power. The foundations were set. The final scene of Season 3 hinted at massive, mythic consequences. But now those foundations will remain unfinished, stones scattered at the edge of what could have been a towering achievement in fantasy television. The impact on character arcs is devastating. It's not just about the plot, it's about the people. Wheel of Time is driven by character arcs that take years to pay off. Rand's slow erosion of empathy. Nynaeve's evolution from stubborn wisdom to battle-scarred healer. Egwene's transformation into one of the strongest leaders of the age. These arcs were not just incomplete, they were just getting good. Perrin's grappling with his wolf nature, Lan's lonely code of honor, Moraine's fading trust in prophecy, Mat's descent into destiny through accident, luck, and a foxhead medallion. All of it was building towards something profound. A fourth season would have been the crucible, the emotional apex, the beginning of the end game. And for these arcs to be halted now, when they are finally rising above their foundations, is one of the deepest narrative losses in recent television memory. What was finally working in Season 3? Every adaptation takes time to find its stride, and Wheel of Time was no exception. Season 1 had moments of promise but stumbled under the weight of exposition and character introductions. Season 2 tightened the pacing, deepened the performances, and expanded the scope. But it was Season 3, now its final, that truly hit the mark. Rosamund Pike's Moraine found a balance between fierce control and quiet vulnerability. Zosha Stradowski's Rand finally stepped into the haunted hero role with depth. Zoe Robbins gave us a Nynaeve who seethed, broke, and rose again. The battle choreography improved. The dialogue lost its stiffness, even the world-building, through costumes, dialects, and cultural distinctions, became textured and alive. The show was learning from its missteps. It was correcting its course, and Season 4 would have been the reward. The version of the show where the setup pays off. The cancellation is doubly painful, not because it ended early, but because it ended just as it was getting great. The shadow's looming threat was finally taking shape. One of the most compelling aspects of Robert Jordan's world is its villains, specifically the Forsaken. In the books, they are terrifying, seductive, and often operate through psychological and metaphysical warfare rather than brute force. In the show, Season 3 began threading them in with nuance. Ishmael had already left his mark. Lanfear was becoming the nightmare you can't look away from. And the rest, Grandal, Moghedien, Demandred, were waiting in the wings. Season 4 promised to unleash them. These were no longer nameless dark agents. These were ancient minds shaped by ambition, pain, and immortal hunger. The Forsaken weren't just going to fight Rand. They were going to tear his soul apart. To lose that confrontation, to lose the intellectual, emotional, and magical war between light and shadow at its apex, is a narrative theft. These aren't just cool villains fans won't get to see. These are thematic pillars of the story, and now they'll remain trapped on the page, never brought fully to life. The Tower politics and White Tower schism were set to erupt. In Wheel of Time, the White Tower is not just a school, it's a political battleground. Season 3 scratched the surface with Elida, the tension between Ajas, and the slow-building unrest among the sisters. But readers know what comes next: the schism, the coup, and the rise of rival Amerlins. This isn't just a subplot, it's one of the series' most complex, social, and magical civil wars. Egwene's rise in this storm is legendary. Her struggle to lead, to redefine what Aes Sedai should be, not as manipulators but as guardians of truth and balance, was moments away from beginning. We were about to witness one of the greatest female political arcs in modern fantasy television. Now it's been shelved indefinitely. And that loss of seeing a woman rise without ever abandoning her values is enormous, especially when those values were about transparency, reform, and unity in the face of annihilation. What Amazon misunderstood about the audience. The Wheel of Time fandom is not loud like Marvel's. It doesn't trend every week like Stranger Things. But it's deep. It's generational. These are fans who've read 14 books multiple times, who've debated the nature of balefire for decades, who've waited patiently for moments like Dumai's Wells, the cleansing of Sadine, and Rand's final smile. Amazon misunderstood this audience by judging it through shallow metrics. This fandom doesn't binge and move on. It dwells. It dissects. It commits. And yes, it grows slowly, but it grows deeply. And when a show like this is canceled, it doesn't just kill excitement, it wounds loyalty. Streaming services continue to make this error, mistaking long-term passion for short-term noise. Wheel of Time could have been Amazon's quiet empire. Instead, it became their lost opportunity. Why this story still deserves an ending. There are stories that entertain, there are stories that inspire, and then there are stories like the Wheel of Time, tales that reshape how generations think about power, prophecy, sacrifice, and self. Jordan's epic doesn't just revolve around one chosen one. It weaves together dozens of lives, all flawed, all rising, all breaking and reforging the world through choice. It's not just a battle between good and evil, it's a meditation on balance, between Sedin and Sedar, war and peace, duty and love. And that's why this story must find its conclusion on screen. It's not just for closure, it's because Wheel of Time is one of the most thematically rich, character-driven sagas ever written. It's a story where women lead armies, where men question prophecy, where fate is defied and remade by the sheer stubbornness of human will. To cut it off now, when so much groundwork has been laid, is to abandon a modern myth in its final stanza. If not a Season 4, then a miniseries. If not a continuation, then a film. This tale has too much meaning to end with a quiet cancellation. It deserves to blaze, not fade. Final thoughts. The wheel has turned and the thread has been cut. Season 4 will not come, not today. But in the world of the Wheel of Time, endings are illusions. Nothing ever truly ends. The pattern frays, but it holds. Always. For those who mourn this loss, know this: your grief is not empty. Your love for this world still matters. It echoes in forums, in fan art, in rereads, and in the stubborn heartbeat of a fandom that refuses to let the story go silent. If Jordan taught us anything, it's that sometimes the wheel turns unexpectedly, and hope is a thread stronger than steel. So speak, share, rewatch, write, fight, let Amazon know this story isn't finished. Let other networks know there's a world worth saving. Because somewhere out there, the dragon still waits. The tower still stands. The last battle still looms. And the pattern endures.